Well, folks, today is the big day. Today is the day where we get to remove this silage tarp here on this plot where we're going to plant some fall sweet corn. We might plant that fall sweet corn today. We might wait, just depending on how wet it is. But we get to remove this tarp, and we want to see just how beautiful this soil is, how nice and weed-free and conditioned it is after having that tarp sit on it for about 6 weeks. Now, if you haven't been following along, earlier in the summer we planted a cover crop of sun hemp here. That did really well. The sun hemp got on about shoulder to head tall. We took a flail mower, borrowed Dad's flail mower, and came in here, chopped it all down. Then we laid the tarp on top of it to help decompose all of that organic matter and also to give us kind of a weed-free zone there. So I'm going to get started taking this tarp off. We're going to take our bricks, we're going to roll our tarp up, and then we'll take a look at what this soil looks like. Alright, so we've got our tarp off here, and if we look at our soil, it's not too wet. I thought it might be too wet. We've had a good bit of rain lately, but the soil is nice, and it's not too dry, but it's not too wet either. I think we can go ahead and plant right into this. We've still got a little bit of organic matter here on the ground, but it's not anchored to the soil by any means. It's just kind of on top of the soil, and now that it's exposed to sunlight, this stuff should burn up pretty quick. But overall, I'm really happy with how this turned out. You know, it just took about 20 minutes or so to put the tarp down, only took about 10 to pull it back up, and we left it on here about 6 weeks. And if I wouldn't have had the tarp, I would have had to have been out here either mowing or cultivating or performing some form of maintenance on this plot. But with the tarp, just kind of set it and forget it. It's been really nice just to not even have to worry about this plot. Put that tarp on it, and well, hello kitty. Hello kitty. Well, we just put the tarp on it and we don't even have to worry about it. And when we get ready to plant our fall sweet corn like we are now, we can come out here and we can do that. So the next step is to grab our plow set on the double wheel hoe and see if we can make some furrows to lay our drip tape for then which we'll plant our fall sweet corn on top of. Alright, so after removing the tarp, we laid off where our rows were going to be. We were able to get 7 rows in this spot right here, which is about, I don't know, 25 or 30 by 40. The 7 rows we've got spaced 36 inches or 3 feet apart, which is a good spacing for sweet corn. So before we laid our drip tape, we want to come in here and we wanted to make a furrow so we could bury that drip tape. Corn does great on buried drip tape. I'll never grow corn without putting it on buried drip tape. So we made a furrow with our double wheel hoe and a plow set. Then we got our mainline manifold set up, and then we used our drip tape layer attachment on the double wheel hoe to bury that drip tape. So lay it in the furrow and cover it up simultaneously in one pass there. Then all we had to do was get our drip fittings to connect the main line to the drip tape, and we're good to go. We're ready to plant some sweet corn. Now I'm going to come back out here this afternoon and plant 7 rows of peaches and cream sweet corn for the fall. This is a bicolor sweet corn. Really looking forward to growing it here in the fall. But before we do that, I want to talk a little bit more about this process we did here and a little bit more about fall corn. So one of the big buzzwords now in gardening and small scale farming is no-till. The problem with no-till in a lot of applications is there's just not the equipment available to do it on a small scale. Your no-till tractors that they use in cotton farming and stuff like that are huge because they have to have a lot of weight on them to penetrate an unbroken soil layer. But for on a small scale or medium scale, this right here, the way we did it, is probably about as no-till as you're going to get. Even if I wasn't using drip tape here, I would have still had to come in there and cultivate where my rows are going to be. Even our garden cedar, which is about 35 pounds, is not able to penetrate that kind of unbroken, firm down soil layer there. So you have to have some kind of cultivation there just to get some dirt available to cover that seed. Otherwise, you're just going to be laying seed right on top of the dirt. So as far as no-till goes, if you're interested in no-till gardening, I think this is a great way to do it with the silage tarp. Grow you a cover crop, mow it, put the silage tarp on top of it, and then the cultivation that you have to do when you do get ready to plant is very, very minimal. You can do what they call a strip till and just cultivate where your rows are going to be, and then you can leave all that organic matter there on top of the soil, and you don't have to break that part of the soil there as you're growing those crops, and that should help to suppress the weeds and also maintain the soil structure. Now, as far as fall corn planting goes, we've had a lot of people asking leading up to this video, what is fall sweet corn? What varieties do well in the fall? Are there separate varieties for the fall and the spring? Well, actually, it's this exact same process that we do in the spring. You can plant the same varieties that you plant the spring in the fall if you've got enough time to do so. It actually takes less time to grow a crop of fall sweet corn than it does spring sweet corn, because it's a lot hotter now in the end of August than it is, say, in March when we plant our spring sweet corn. So the date to maturity is going to be less than what's actually listed on the seed packet, usually sometimes even 10 to 15, maybe even 20 days less. So it's going to grow off a lot quicker in the fall because you've got a lot of heat early on in the crop. With fall sweet corn, you do have a little more worm pressure, so you always want to make sure you spray your spinosad when it starts silking, and do that regularly to keep the worms from eating up your corn. Now, I plant my fall sweet corn, or I like to plant it at the end of August. I planted it as late as September before, sometimes even late September, and it's done fine then as well. So depending on where you live, we're here in zone 8B, so we have probably about a month and a half window for planting fall sweet corn. If you're up north, it might be a little smaller. If you're south of us, it might be a little bit longer. So I'm going to call it a morning and head on into the office. I'm going to come back this afternoon and plant my peaches and cream sweet corn on top of this buried drip tape with my Hoss garden cedar. But that is for a whole other video. So this video is to be continued. You'll have to stay tuned for next week's video when we'll show how we plant that peaches and cream corn, how we get our seed plate ready, and how the garden cedar does such a good job planting in a plot with a lot of heavy residue like this one here. So I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one.